Good afternoon, folks. Steve Vetterl, managing partner here, FXCSTrader.com. Going to review very quickly and briefly the trading room and the activity we did today, Wednesday the 21st of August, and today was the release of the FOMC minutes. And man, what a phenomenal session we had today as far as utilizing both the market profile charts and the footprint charts to see the reversals and the continuation patterns to not only help us enter the trade, but more importantly to help us, take profits on the way down. We had a phenomenal day in the trading room today. I know that it's a slower summer day, but with the members that were in the room and some of the folks that follow me on Twitter, we posted and timestamped all of our trades today. Had well over 20 points, some of us on this move today. So let's go ahead and go through the review. What you see in front of you is my market delta, both the profile on the left-hand side and the candle chart on the right-hand side. Okay, so taking a look at the market profile chart on the left of the September ES contract, we had gone through the review this morning and basically said that we were opening up in the lower part of yesterday's range, and you can see my pointer right here pointing to the previous RTH session for the ES. This is the Globex session you see here in the middle. This is what's called a custom split market profile chart. The lines that you see are coming over from this previous sort of odd shaped, looks like a double distribution type of shape that you see here. Keep in mind this is Globex. So we were alerting a lot of the members, not only the value area low and the large ledge 3 TPOs wide here at the top, that this was going to be a potential area to what I like to call air pocket all the way to the previous day's POC. So with an incomplete auction, a couple of missing notches in the previous day's profile, we were on high alert to take a short anywhere in this area, which was also the 50-day line on the long-term chart. So as we opened up trading, where you can see here the blue O, I'm actually going to split the charts out in the next frame. We'll be able to see how trading took place today and where exactly we placed the trades. I'll also jump over towards the footprint chart. See if I can squeeze it down in the screen. I'll run through where everything changed in the footprint, how it really alerted you almost perfectly on the tops and bottoms of this range a number of times throughout the latter part of the session after the FOMC minutes were released. It was okay. Now that we have the chart split out here, this is the ES September contract. A couple of things to note. These lines that you see coming across are from the previous RTH's trading activity. So essentially this is the RTH profile that we want to take a closer look at. This would be the Globex session you see right here in the middle, and then obviously today's trading on the far right hand side. But a couple of points to note with the rather tight auctioning process that we saw upon the open. Really didn't want to get caught up in this chop unless I saw lower prices, certainly down to the 40 to 41 area. I was heavily looking towards the footprint. We took a long down here. Okay, so I have the ES September contract split out. Let's go ahead and go through this. This was just textbook today. We had a tight range that we opened up with, more of a open auction in range of the previous day. And keep in mind, this is the Globex session right here. And then we have the RTH section of the profile right here. So keep that in mind as we go through this analysis. Look at that, it's a pretty good drawing. There we go. So we opened up, we auctioned in range of the previous day. The IB was also formed. No surprise, we had Fed minutes that were going to be released today. So we were really in the room trying to sit on our hands, looking for something that was going to show itself outside. We got a little gift down here because we were very much looking to trade long. The first zap down below, or stop run if you will, underneath the 41 to 40 area. We got filled anywhere between 41 to 40.5 on that trade. Paid quite nice as we rallied up into the Fed minutes. Probably best scale on that trade. Maybe 5 points for a lot of the room members. The most important part broke is when the Fed minutes was released, we had a huge drop down. And we were definitely looking to take this trade on any spike lower, especially on a lot of the NYSE internals, Trin, overly bearish, huge tick spikes down on this move, large volume coming in. But we really wanted to take the first test of this important area down at the bottom, so we were on alert to take that, we got again another gift which paid just absolutely huge. Looking at all the way up the profile, this trade went to our other important area, which was big, the 50-day line, previous day's POC, which is the red line that you see right here. We were on, again, alert that this was potentially going to be what's called a stop and reverse if you still had some runners on or just getting short. We got short mostly on what's called a symmetrical neutral pattern on the profile, and I'll close it down and show you that on the next screen. But this trade rode itself all the way back down the profile. So it's sometimes easier to see with the charts split out, kind of helps you see how all of these 30-minute brackets with different letters and different coloring built the structure of the profile. But really what I want you to see is that this was a symmetrical neutral pattern. This is one of the setups in our trade room. This is one of many different market profile setups. It has been rare recently. So the fact that I saw a whole bunch of things up here in addition to that symmetrical pattern playing out, albeit not perfectly symmetrical, but damn near close enough for us to take the trade, I thought this late day trade, if we could, get a decent rotation back down, maybe looking for a couple of points. But some of the signals that were flashing on the volume that was coming back down, and I'll switch over to the footprint next, was telling me that there's a pretty good chance this thing could go all the way back down and completely traverse the profile. So I posted that on Twitter a couple of times. Some people thought it was nuts. That's fine. You had a lot of people getting long this late day rally that completely got the rug pulled out from under them, that were looking for a huge reversal candle on the daily chart that absolutely got their ass handed to them. So I think it is critical to understand the importance that market profile plays in trading. Recognize these patterns can help tremendously in trading. Today very much reminded me of some of the wild volatility we've seen a couple of years ago that I certainly hope comes back. And if anybody's got any questions on this profile or what have you, you could certainly send me an email, just steve@fxestrader.com. Now I'm going to switch over to the next screen to the footprint. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the footprint here for the September contract for the ES. This is a 5 PNF, or essentially a 5-tick reversal chart. If you're not familiar with how to read this footprint, I highly encourage you to go to Market Delta's website, or you can see some of the previous videos on this. I'm not going to get too much into that. I just want to show you guys exactly what we were looking for in order to get long. Coming back into the 1640 area, the drop that we saw off of the morning chop towards the 1146 portion of the top of the hour, we saw a large amount of volume coming in on this, what I'd like to call an exhaustive move on this bar. See how we came down, hit a number of large nodes of volume that came in here. Much greater volume in respect than what we had seen on almost 20 or 30 bars back. So we were already on high alert in the room that we wanted to get long on a potential zap down, because let's face it, last 2 weeks the market's done what? The same thing. It's gotten a big sell-off into, in many cases, the 11 a.m. hour. That final spike down. Tick charts were certainly showing that on this drop, and then we had a grind up and reversal all day. Now, granted, we didn't expect that to happen because the FOMC minutes were coming out at 2 o'clock East Coast. We wanted to be prepared for that, but I thought it was critical as an example, as a beautiful teaching example, that we had an exhaustive move here on the footprint and a fairly quick reaction away from it. So for example, notice once we dropped down, had all the volume print, came back 5 ticks, started printing the new bar. Notice the 1-2 sell side imbalances, but they were very small in size. This is the beauty of the new algo imbalance footprint that Market Delta offers, which is what this software is. It's being fed by CQG and backed up by DTN IQ, if you're wondering that. So we came back down again. Again, more went off, but I was thinking this was really hidden buying as opposed to any type of initiative selling down here. You had basically responsive buyers down at this point. So as we begun to bounce off, noticing what? Buy side imbalance here. Again, bounced up, printed a new bar, had 2 sell sides hit with pretty big volume. This was a first shot at sellers coming in and hitting this again. went back down, boom, pretty decent size buy-side imbalance popped. Same thing down here. So as we continued to test above there, all the shorts just got squeezed. I mean, look at this. What do we go? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 buy-side imbalances on this. I mean, this is excellent for anybody that got long. So I posted a little bit on Twitter why and how, and you know, this trade was off the races for about 5 points, and you know, the best 2 trades were still yet to come. So let me switch over to the other screen now, and I'll show you the next trade. Okay, so we're on to the next trade of the day. We had the notes and the FOMC minutes were released. A lot of people interpreted the tapering to be fairly bearish, had a whole bunch of chopping around with wild spikes, and then we begun to make a move lower. So we, again, we're on the alert for an exhaustive type of bar to print with a lot of volume, which we got here. Doesn't mean we necessarily want to go long. It's just putting us on alert that possibly volume may have exhausted itself. So anytime we see any spike back up, we want it to see shallow. We want really nothing in terms of the order flow to go off near the top. And then we want to begin to see these bars drop back down again. But notice down here, our first clue was that possibly we may have seen the bottom. Well, I mean, obviously it's a big area at 1636 for a whole host of reasons. But we saw our first buy-side imbalance. Okay, pretty decent size as well. Plus nothing went off in terms of the order flow down there at 36. So I said, okay, well, let's see the next bar print out. Next bar prints out again. Not much volume going off here with a little mini sell side showing up at the top. Buy side being the lime green versus blue, sell side being the darker red versus the blue. That's how you can tell the difference. At least that's the way I've set the colors up. You can set them up whatever way you want. But looking at, we come back down to the next bar, we were printing basically even less volume, but we had 2 small buy sides show up. This was our first clue that there was a potential that this was going to reverse. So we took a long in our room. Many folks got long, in, you know, somewhere in the 37 area, 36 3/4, 37 1/4, you know, whatever. It really didn't matter to me as far as the execution. I wanted to be on this. Things were moving fast. As you can see, look how fast these things were printing out, roughly a minute each, whereas in the past, some of these PNF 5-tick reversals could take 2 hours. So, you know, and you always want to be in the game on a fast-moving market. Now, here's our clue that this could be an absolute score. At least, in my opinion, a score being 5 to plus 10 points. We saw 1, 2, 3, 4 buy-side imbalances hit. Whole bunch of other stuff just really zooming us back up. And we saw our first defense of this area back at 42. No surprise. It's where a lot of our lack of flow went off. Back down again. Notice the buy-side imbalance that showed up. Alerted us to possibly some heavier volume. Printed off a new bar. And continued to trend higher. So in this pretty much looks like this. And I'm not going to scroll through every minute. But it pretty much looked like this the whole day. And to the folks in the room, I say kudos if you held this trade for plus 10, 12, 13, 15 points, because this thing was a freaking home run. And it really illustrates the power of learning how to read the profile. Another clue we were possibly going to reverse, this printed off an incomplete auction here, okay? But when we went down and went just below it, nothing went off, showing us that the auction was more than likely complete, especially from a risk-reward structure. So let's go to the last trade of the day, which was short the 54 area. Next slide. Okay, so as we came into the huge squeezing rally all the way up past the double TPO high of Globex, we got into what I like to call an air pocket. And took us almost all the way up right to test the 50-day line, which is very much the case when you're in a major squeeze. We want to see what's going off up there. Okay, so first couple of clues that we may be topping out was the lack of flow we saw in this bar and this bar at the high. Doesn't mean it's reversing. We're just looking for clues. Most of the stuff in the footprint is all gobbledygook. You just want to pay attention to what's going on in the footprint in big potential inflection points or supports of resistance or other areas of confluence. So as we came down, I was looking for more of an exhaustive move, had a couple more buy-side imbalances show up, and then boom, this was our tell right here. See this volume that came in on the footprint? Killer. Love it. the exhaustive move, you can see how the delta for the day jumped, okay? But it didn't jump that much, all right? So what that's telling us right there is these are the two clues that we may be seeing a reversal, and that the prints on the next couple of bars are going to be our tell as to whether we get in this trade or not. We all knew we wanted to be short, and you know, sure, it was absolutely stepping in front of the freight train, but those are often some of the best trades when you feel that, you know, it's not initiative buying or selling. In this case, it's just a big fat short squeeze. So you're waiting for it to exhaust itself and for the potential for shorts to pile on again. So what I was looking for when the next bar printed is, hey, if we get back up to where all these high volume nodes were, what's the flow look like? Boom, we got our first signal right here that potentially there's a sell side imbalance up near this. Nothing was off there. Big players maybe would have stepped in and defended if we popped a little higher. I still probably would have taken the trade. But the fact that we absolutely exhausted with a fairly large zero buy, anything in the thousands of contracts, I consider that a fairly large exhaustion, especially after big nodes are printed towards the top of the bar. So provided we could stay underneath that with the next successive group of bars that print, we got a pretty good shot at a short. Little did we know, you know, at the time, you know, how fast the drop would be. I was pretty confident if we caught the top of symmetrical neutral as far as a market profile pattern, that there's a pretty good shot that we could traverse the entire profile, and which often happens. It happened zillions of times in 09 and certainly 08, and coming off of all the volatility, had huge symmetrical neutral patterns that would form on the profile, you know, in the 30-minute brackets I described earlier in the video, that would completely go back down the other side if and only if we had the volatility coming in. So I'm going to move the slide forward here, and we'll take a look at how this played out. Okay, so essentially after this trade peaked out on the large node up at the all-important 54 area, anytime we pop back up on these next bars, you really wanted to see nothing going off. See, we saw a successive 3 of a fairly incomplete, I should say, yeah, I mean, it was complete here. It was an incomplete auction here, so I really wanted to see us, you know, pop up and maybe try again closer to 54 as far as testing the area. What was absolutely fabulous is that this is the sell program, folks, okay? Whenever you see a very dark color with a lot of 1 or 2 on a particular area, it in many cases is an algo trying to terrorize retail. So we saw this hit where it was 1, 2, 3, 4 sell side imbalances literally on top of each other, and it completely reversed the bar down. So you could have waited. You're on high alert here, you're getting more confident here and so forth. This, boom, this is your chance to pull the trigger. So maybe you'd have gotten short here at 53, maybe at 52 3/4. I mean, frankly, I don't care, because we had a pretty good shot of getting some good range off this trade. So you will rarely see me get that picky about the execution of a trade. You know, certainly you could have gotten short here, but you really didn't have a confirm that we had exhausted this move until you saw how these next few bars printed. So once we had this here, look at all the volume ripping off down, boom, small exhaustion. Again, want to see for scales, probably a good place to have taken some scales like we did. Now, again, when you have, you know, anything pop back up in these bars, you want to really pay close attention to what's going off on the order flow. It had really nothing on the bid popping off here. Pretty decent size on the offer. Popped over the next bracket again. Started off nothing down there, so we sort of chopped around a little bit. But look at the clues that came when the bigger bracket printed here. Okay, green bar. A lot of folks saying, hey, you know, this is the pattern of late day, most of the last 2 weeks where you had a pullback and then they started buying it into the close. Well, so far we're seeing what? Lower highs, 5 successive lower highs after the big node, including this one. So you really weren't looking to get long on that because nothing was going off above 52. I'd be looking to get short, possibly on any pop back up. Didn't really give us that opportunity because it continued to fall all the way down the entire profile. So essentially that's the review. Hopefully quick and dirty for everybody. All right, so that was the quick review of the market here. Be interesting to see what Thursday and Friday provides. But If you guys have any questions, you want to check us out, fxestrader.com. Actually have had a very large response to a lot of this stuff going on. So I've decided to start a 5-week intensive training class. It's probably going to be sometime in the beginning of October. So stay tuned on that. If you guys have any questions, you can go to our homepage, scroll down to the bottom, then just click on Contact Us. Or if you want, you can just send me an email directly, steve@fxestrader.com. Thanks for joining us, guys. Trade well.